Welcome to Steve Marriott Coaching. Now, a little phrase has crept into a couple of conversations I've had recently, so I thought I'd take the opportunity of exploring that little phrase with you. So the phrase is this: let me reflect on that, or I need to reflect on that. Now, reflection's great, that's absolutely fine. But the question I want to ask you is, when you're tempted to say that, are you actually choosing to do reflection, or are you ruminating? Now, there's a big difference. For me, rumination is when your thoughts don't seem to have an off button. So something happens in a conversation, a thought lands with you and you just can't get rid of it. So kind of like a vinyl record that gets stuck. The thought just keeps going around and around and around inside your head. Never really improves. And what it does tend to do is keep you focused on a negative self-image or a negative image of the person you were talking with, or intently focused on the problem. So it tends to amplify it with you. It tends to bring in more intense emotions about it. So what really happens, rather than reflecting on it, is that you re-engage in the conversation as if you only press pause. You come back in ready for the fight, round two, but with a lot more energy and even more firmly entrenched with your singular perspective. So it just leads to a more intense argument. And whilst all that's going on, because you're so preoccupied with the problem and the emotions that it's stirred up, you're likely to miss the solution, or even worse, ignore potential avenues to finding a solution. So all it is just an escalation process. Now let's talk about reflection. Reflection is similar. It is a replaying of your memory of the conversation or whatever it was that led to you needing to disengage, but with a more positive intent and an intent to look for solutions. So it's still like playing the same record, but this time, this is what I'm going to show you my age. It's like playing with the graphic equalizer. It may not improve the sound, but what it does do is gives you different perspectives, or kind of like on your computer, if you play with the filters that are on your camera, it's exactly the same. It's the same image, but what you're doing is looking at it through different colors, different shades, and different aspects. Now, what's different is this leads to a more positive, neutral image of you and the other person, and actually an intent to move away from the problem and focus on a solution. So it kind of lifts and elevates your thinking. Now, the process of reflection, unlike rumination where you stew, is for you to critically dismantle your experience. So what you're doing is you're replaying it, but for each aspect, challenging yourself to say, what was going on there? What was really being said? What was my feelings, or what was my thought process there? What contributed to that? And whilst you're doing that, you'll be giving yourself different alternatives of how you could replay it. So you're basically asking yourself, what else might have been going on? What else might I have tried in that situation? Once you've done that critique of yourself, if you're still reflecting, what you'll probably then do is reflect on the other parties that were in the conversation, and you'll begin to ask yourself the same questions about them. What was actually said? What might have been going on for them? Why might they have said that? How might they have been feeling? Again, what that will give you is incredible flexibility to begin to understand the different perspectives that the other party might come into. All of that reflection will give you a massive flexibility when you re-engage with the conversation about no longer focusing on the problem and it being a battle, and focusing on how you shift into a higher gear or focus on a higher target of how do we move forward? What's the positive solution? Real reflection is a skill. It has to be learned and it has to be practiced, because our default will be rumination, because we just kind of like getting into, winding ourselves up and get back in and wait for that mic drop moment. Real reflection is pretty uncomfortable. But what it does do is it gives you a grounding and it gives you alternative perspectives. So if you come back into the conversation and you're spoiling for a fight, chances are you've just done rumination. But if you re-enter the conversation with a different perspective, a different feeling, and actually looking for solutions, then it's more likely that you've done proper reflection. It requires vulnerability, it requires humility, and it requires a lot of practice. But all I want to do is raise that one into your consciousness that says, the next time you say, I need to reflect, are you disengaging because you need to do the reflection to find some alternatives? Or actually, are you just saying, had enough of this one, it's uncomfortable, and I'm just going to go away and ruminate and stew?